Hi friends, welcome to the Unit 1 Day 5 notes. Today we're going to be talking about the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula, you probably remember from an earlier course, x equals opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And what we did is we actually solved this equation here. We solved it for x. Now, because we're solving it for x, we end up with different scenarios here. And because of the squared, with having two possible solutions, that's why we have the plus or minus here to account for the two different solutions. One of the things that we can do is we can find the types of solutions that we're going to have. And the reason that we give it, that we're able to do that is because we have this value underneath the radical. If you think about when you have a negative or a positive in the radical, it does different things. And if you have something that, is the square root of 0 underneath the radical, then that also gives you certain things. So this idea of this part that's underneath the radical, that's called the discriminant. And the reason it's called a discriminant is because it discriminates or picks out the solution types. So in this case, a lot of times we hear the word discriminatory and we think of something that's negative because of history. That's perfectly fine and appropriate to do. Here in math, the discriminant selects or picks out, in this case, the types of solutions. So in the math sense, this discriminant is actually helpful for sorting out or picking the type of solution. Discriminant, the root word to it, does actually mean like sort by some sort of sorting mechanism. So that in and of itself isn't necessarily negative. The history connotations, we have discrimination against someone or something, human being wise, definitely avoid that. Before I get too far off onto social issues and social justice, which is important, I do want to jump back into the math, but feel free to contact me if you want to talk about discriminant in the math sense or in the social justice sense. When b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, and then you have a perfect square, you will have two rational solutions. Two rational solutions. When b squared is minus 4ac is greater than 0 and not a perfect square, then you will have two irrational solutions. You probably have not seen a lot of these types of examples when you've done the quadratic formula. You will in this course. When b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, then you will have two complex solutions. And then when b squared minus 4ac is exactly equal to 0 and a perfect square, there will be one rational solution. So give the value of the discriminant and discuss the types of solutions, then solve by the quadratic formula. So first we need to put this in standard form. So I'm going to add 2 on both sides. So I have x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. So a is 1, b is negative 4, and then c is 2. So now knowing that, my discriminant, if I plug that in, I'm going to have square root of b squared minus 4ac. When I substitute or plug that in, I'm going to get, not the square root, just the b squared part for the discriminant. My apologies. Just that part. Okay. So when I substitute or plug in, I'm going to see if you can see this. Kind of. Negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times c, which is 2. So negative 4 quantity squared is 16 minus 8. So I get 8. 8 is not a perfect square, so I'm going to end up with two irrational solutions. And now I can go ahead and solve using the quadratic formula. So again, I have x equals opposite b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We already found the b squared minus 4ac part here, so I don't need to do that part again. I already found that, so I'm not going to redo that. So I have x equals opposite b. b is negative 4, so opposite b is 4, plus or minus square root of 8, all over 2 times a, which is 1. So plugging that in, I have x equals 4 plus or minus, dividing by 2 here, 2 times 1 is 2, but the square root of 8 simplifies to 2 radical 2. And now at this point you can see if you can divide both of the coefficient here and then the coefficient with the radical by whatever your denominator is. I can, so that's going to give me x equals 2 plus or minus square root of 2. And those are my two solutions. I said that I would have two rational solutions. Those are two rational solutions, so that is valid. For the next one, number 10, we have 2x squared minus x plus 4 equals 0. In this case, a equals 2, b equals -1, and then -1, -1, there we go, and then c equals 4. So if I do my discriminant, I'm going to end up with, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and write out b squared minus 4ac. Now if I plug in, let's see, I have -1 squared minus 4 times 2 times 4. So I'm going to have 1 minus 8 times 4 is 32. Yeah, sorry, I had a moment there. And that gives me -31. So because of that, I know that I'm going to have two complex solutions. Again, solving through with the quadratic formula, x equals opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So when I substitute or plug in, again, I don't need to redo this discriminant part. I already have it. So I have x equals opposite b, so that's going to be 1, plus or minus square root of -31 all over 2 times 1, which is 2. And then now I can go ahead and simplify this. X equals 1 plus or minus I square root of 31. So always take out the I. You're never going to leave a negative or another radical. All over 2. I can't evenly divide 2 into 1 or into I, so I'm going to leave it as this. Sometimes you will have someone ask for them split apart into its two forms with like the real and the imaginary part, or the real and the radical as two separate. That's fine too. That's just another way to represent it. And then join me in the next video as we complete the square. Have a wonderful day.